Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is AfterSixSales podcast. My name is Ryan. Now, if you're anything like me, you'd probably be here listening and watching because you're a sales professional. You guys know the grind doesn't just stop after six. Perhaps you're a salesperson looking to gain insight, new to sales, and you're out there looking for top professional insight. Either way, this is the very reason I started AfterSixSales. For the past 8 years, I've been learning the ins and outs of sales, making the dials, closing the deals, and training over 150 sales reps. Now, more recently, I've set sights to extend my reach. My mission is to help as many sales reps understand what it takes to become a sales professional. And I truly believe that real growth comes from the work that everybody does after the workday ends. And after the office lights go off and we're still there outside seeking opportunity for growth and development to propel us towards success. We'll be chatting with everyday sales professionals, sharing insight as to what works and what doesn't work, and dropping insight to help you guys crush your sales goals. Now, with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into it. So in this very first episode of the AfterSixSales podcast, I'm going to talk with someone who I've had the pleasure of training and has gone on to build an incredible sales career. His name is Zachary Honore. Zach's journey spans across marketing, sales, medical sales, and even some real estate investing. And he's not just a top performer in the sales industry, he's also the author of a groundbreaking sales guide that helps others overcome common barriers in sales. And today we're going to dive into his story, learn from his experiences, and talk about the sales strategy that's led him to success. Zach, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, Ron, how you doing, man?
It's nice to have you on. Thanks for being the first guest. Still working out the kinks and being a little creative with the process, and still trying to figure things out.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Yeah, man, I enjoy chopping it up and love to see people grow. So anything that I can share, take any salesperson from this level to the next.
Absolutely, man. Likewise, man. Likewise. And I'm happy to share your story, and kind of you had some exciting things that we can get into. But I think the first thing of where we should really start, I mean, you and I go way back to the beginning. I don't know if you were really starting your sales journey or just starting to get serious about sales when we started working together. It seemed like you had a good sales foundation, but I think you were just getting started. Is that right?
Yeah, when I came on, and started selling with the marketing firm that we were both a part of. I mean, I had some like inside sales experience, and some business development experience. But I think, nothing compares to the nuts and bolts of hitting the phones, and getting in front of prospects that, I mean, they've never seen you before. They don't know you from Adam, and you're crafting and creating a relationship, with business professionals, business owners, and closing deals. So, I've definitely seen sales in a myriad of different forums. And, that was one where I grew exponentially as a salesperson.
So discuss some of your early stuff before we started working together. Like, what were some key struggles or some key milestones you had to achieve to really get comfortable in the role of sales?
Yeah. So I'll take it back to when I first got into sales. A buddy of mine, he reached out to me. He was doing inside sales, a telecommunications company.
Okay.
He reached out to me. He said, "Hey, Zach, I think that you would be good at sales." And that's not something I'd ever considered up to that point. I was in school, for nursing. So it was going to be, in the medical field. And so, I thought, okay, let me go ahead and give this a shot. And I think this will be a good, part-time job. And maybe I'll make a little cash on the side until I get into my real career as a nurse. And so, that's what I did. I walked into the store that day. It just happened to be a big manager day. And so all the managers were in house, and I walked up to the manager and I had said, I feel like I can do this job. And he said, okay, well, a lot of people think that, why is he was like, okay, well, sell me something. Like quintessential, sell me something. And at that point, I'd done a little research, and the first question that I asked him was, so what do you like to do? And he stopped and he looked at me like a deer in the headlights, because he had asked that question to, I mean, at that point, probably 50, 60
Right.
people. And usually people just start dumping features on a
Features
person.
and
Oh,
benefits.
it does this pen does this, and it flies and it does all this.
Right.
And he said I was the first person that had asked him a question
Wow.
back and tried to discover his problems. So they basically hired me on spot. And that's where my sales journey
That's
began.
awesome, man. And it's funny that you say that was the first time, having interviewed that many people, that someone had asked him a question, um, you know, prime example of talking about too many features and benefits, trying to, almost push something onto somebody in that aspect. So cool, man. So you and I had worked together at the marketing company that we both worked at. And I had the opportunity to kind of train you, and from your
Yeah.
perspective, like, walk me through that whole experience. Like, what were some key takeaways or takeaway moments from that?
Yeah. So, I mean, key takeaway moments, from that experience was to, have a system, have a
Yeah.
script. And I know some salespeople are probably cringing right now. Some salespeople are like, oh no, like having a script. I want to have a script. And they push back against, I don't want to sound like a
Yeah,
robot.
exactly.
And the thing about a script, the thing about role playing, the thing about training your sales muscles is you shouldn't sound like a robot. Like you should have a process that where you're taking your prospect on this journey to make a
Right.
decision,
Exactly.
you know?
Yeah.
And up to that point, I was kind of riding on the coattails of you like me, you like my personality selling.
Right.
When you're in person,
Yeah.
there's a little bit more that you can get
Yeah.
away
Face to
with.
face for
But
sure.
when you're over the phones, you have to go through a process that proves you as competent, and that proves to, these professionals that your money, or their money, their investment is safe with you. Um, and so you have to have a
Yeah.
process. You have to have a framework. And you were, I remember struggling at first, and being like, Ryan, I don't know what's going on here, man.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely a
Um,
transition coming
um,
from the outside sales aspect and then coming into a phone sales role where, you're using your tonality and your voice and they can't see you on the other side. And if I'm remembering correctly, I think one of the big things that you had started doing when we were getting you on the phones, and you were kind of, you had learned the sales pitch, and you had learned the process. Um, you had
yeah,
all the foundational stuff down, but you were kind of running into those roadblocks where, it was almost like there was a rapport issue, and exactly what you're talking about. You told me that you started, using some phrasing like, "Hey, I'm just coming back into the office from lunch." And I think the way you put it is, you almost learned, it was like a switch went off for you, and you almost started saying that to
yeah,
humanize yourself, to get the other person on the other
yeah,
side of the phone to almost kind of take a sigh of relief of like, oh my gosh, thank goodness this isn't going to go as like a normal, like another sales call.
yeah, yeah. And so I think it's about, breaking down the mundane, and so, um, like if people have something of value, there's going to be salespeople that are trying to solve a solution, and there's all sorts of products that are out there. So you have to think about it from a prospect's perspective, that they're being hit up all the
Right.
time, with all sorts of messages, marketing materials. I mean, I heard a study, we get 50,000 marketing messages a day. Like that's the
Yeah.
average.
It's like an
So
oversaturation of the market.
if you 100%, 100%. And so if you come across as just another robot, just another, message, you come across
Yeah.
as noise. And so how do you humanize yourself? How do you see them as a person and can engage on a relationship level rather than just a number? Yeah.
Glad you brought that relationship aspect up, because I feel like towards the end, when you got into the groove of things and you started really producing well, it was almost like that switch had went off for you, and you had connected with who your personality was going to be on the phone. And I think what a lot of times new reps spend the first couple months doing in a new role is really figuring out who their sales personality is even going to be, right?
Yeah.
And that
Yeah.
that really stood out to me when that moment clicks for you. It's just like it's like a light bulb goes off for you, and it's just you
Mhm.
start to notice, you sit a little bit more relaxed in your seat. You're having better conversations. You're understanding people's business and their needs better, and you're just having that real human connection with people.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, and people
Yeah,
crave that. People want to do business with people that they know, like, and
hundred
trust,
percent,
and so how can we come off as both, friendly and a person that they want to
hundred
talk
percent.
to, but then at the same time come across as competent and a person that they
Right.
trust, with their
Yeah, I
investment.
think that keyword
Yeah.
there, competent, for sure. Yeah, I mean, someone that's going to be able to execute on the problem that they're having, number one, identifying it, but then, you being the right person to actually execute and make them understand and trust you that you're going to be the person to help, you know?
Yeah.
So
100%.
just going
100%.
back to like the training aspect of it, and I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just wanted to get feedback on, what did you like about the training style, or any moments of insight that you may have had during the training process? I know we touched on, making sure you have the rapport built by humanizing yourself, but like, what about specifically the training do you think that, kind of made you have that aha moment aside from that?
Yeah. I think one of the big things in the training is
Yeah.
repetition, repetition and
Yeah.
practice. Like, you have to know the journey that you're taking this
Right.
person on. And that's what you're doing when you're a salesperson. You are taking this person on a journey to a decision. And if you don't know where you're going, you got them in the bus and you don't have the directions, you're kind of just driving around in
Yeah.
circles, you're wasting their time and you're wasting
Yeah.
your time. And so the training is what gets you to understand the route in which you're taking in the
Yeah.
sale. It proves you as competent. It allows you to not be thinking about the next thing that you're going to say, because you, as a salesperson, you have to have it so
Yeah.
ingrained that when they're speaking, you're downloading all the information that they're giving you. You're hearing their tonality. You're hearing, the sound of their voice. You're hearing the confidence that, are they trusting you? Are they going to close? Are they not going to close? Like, you're able to process these things, but that's only if you're no longer processing how to even get through the sale in the first
100%.
place.
100%. Now, you know, we talked about that aha moment, having that realization of like, oh, okay, I think I have it down now. But what are some
Yeah.
things that you kind of struggled with trying to get to that point? Like, I remember there was one time where, during lunch, we started going and hitting balls at the golfing range, because there was,
Oh, yeah.
talk more
Yeah.
so about that mental aspect of like, you know, and it's not just us, it's not just me and you that go through this. A ton of people go through that mental block of what was working so well. And you had such good week on week on week. And then you run into weeks where you're kind of just like, 0, 0, 0, strikeout, strikeout. Talk me through that mental
Sure.
process.
I think back to that time, and when you're a green
Mhm,
salesperson,
mhm.
right? You come in, and even people that are green to different industries, you come in and you are, doing the reps, getting people on the phone, stumbling through, trying to get your personality across and trying to connect with
Right.
people. So it is in essence, although you're stumbling through, there's a lot of heart in it, and you are connecting with people. And so you're filling up your prospecting line, because that's all you
Yeah.
can do. You're prospecting, you're filling up your pipeline, and then eventually something clicks and you understand the product, and now you start closing, and what was once hard now is easy, and you have so much in the pipeline, but afterwards, now your pipeline runs
Yeah.
dry and you haven't been prospecting
Right.
enough.
It's like that
And
balance.
I think some salespeople, yes, yeah. So I think it's that balance of, you still have to continually fill that pipeline, and if you're not careful, you can go back and correct the wrong thing.
Sure.
You can try to, and it's funny enough that we actually went out and did golf swings, and that fixed everything, just because my process, there was nothing wrong with my
100%.
process.
And I sense that.
I just had the
Yeah,
yips.
exactly.
Yeah.
And oftentimes that's honestly what happens. It's like we get this sense of momentum, and then all of a sudden we start, it's almost like that pipeline dries up, like you're talking about. We start thinking like, oh, what am I doing differently? And if we often look back at what we're doing differently, it's really, we're not doing anything differently. It's what we didn't do a couple weeks ago when we were closing all those deals. We were actually we just stopped prospecting for a while because we've been closing deals. So it's just that fine balance of, you have to keep prospecting. You can never stop prospecting. Even though you're closing deals, it feels good, and you're like, hey,
you got to take those leads.
let's take a
gotta
break.
take those
But
leads.
your foot kind of has to stay on the idle. You can't idle it. You got to press it a little bit to keep those leads coming in. Okay, good.
Yeah.
So you had a successful career with the marketing sales. So from there, walk me through kind of your transition from going to sales and marketing to the medical sales that you ended up doing, because I know that pivoting between industries for a lot of people tends to be something that can be, mentally challenging, but also, having to learn a new framework, having to learn new verbiage, having, different, I think you went from phone sales back to in-person sales, if I'm not mistaken, and you were booking your own appointments, and you went from having, a lot of inbound leads to now you're doing a lot of the prospecting. So walk me through that.
Yeah. So, in this, this type of role that, they equate it to business development or being an account executive. And just like what you said, it's in person. And so you're getting out into, your city or your territory, and you're creating strategic relationships. And in those strategic relationships, you're now getting patients to interact, with a medical provider, or a medical company. And so it is a little bit different. But it's also, it's different, but it's the same,
for sure.
Different, but it's the same, in that you're still having to, communicate the benefits of your company, but you're out there, you're prospecting, you're in person. And you have to be a little bit more sensitive, when you're in person.
I would imagine also too, because of the medical aspect of it, having to be a little bit more careful of your verbiage.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So it's just a little bit more sensitive of an environment, but sales is still the same. You're going in and you're asking about their problems. Like, what does any person need? Like, if you're going into a medical office and you're talking to a case manager and they're bombarded by salespeople, how are you going to be different? How are you going to understand their reality? And I learned so much about that while I was, at our, the company that we work for. It's so much about learning that person's reality, that you can step into their shoes, understand their problems, be able to communicate that with them, build a sense of trust. and now you're the answer to the problems that they face. And so then they pick up the phone and call you. So it is a little bit
Yeah.
different. But the process is still the
Yeah.
same. Process is still the same. I know, some people, as they change industries and they look at industries they may be interested in and they may be fearful about taking the leap. Um, I would say the best thing that you can do is, one, do your research, to see if it's something that you're passionate about. Because salespeople do need to be passionate. They do need to know they are solving a problem, because if they don't feel like they're genuinely solving a problem, they won't be able
Yeah.
to sell.
100%.
Like, n- no matter what. And if their belief wavers, you need to find a different
Yeah.
company, maybe find a different product. But your heart has to be in it, because you have to feel good about what you're doing every single
100%.
day. Nobody wants to be a snake oil salesman.
100%. Was there a unique challenge that you faced having to, like, as you switched industries, that you had to overcome, that you can, pinpoint?
I would say the biggest the biggest challenge was going from, because I originally started as an in-person
Right.
salesperson. I was in, inside sales, and inside sales and leads come to
Hmm.
you. And then I was in
Yeah.
person, and then I transitioned to the marketing firm, where it was inside sales, leads comes to
Hmm.
you, but they're never interacting with you in
Right.
person, to then outside sales, and you having to build your own pipeline and fill up your own leads. So I would say that was probably, the hardest part, is just um, being more cognizant of the whole sales
Yeah.
cycle, from start to finish, from lead
Yeah.
creation to lead, or to
Yeah.
prospect close. You're just more responsible for that cycle as you switch industries. And some salespeople are not fit for that.
Yeah.
And that's
100%.
okay. Like, you just have to know where you are.
Yeah.
Are you a person that can go in and break down walls and create relationships out of thin air? Are you comfortable with that? Or do you like to be served up, an alley-oop, and you want to do the
Yeah.
slam dunk?
100%.
So it's, you kind of have to know yourself, but, sometimes you just got to give it a shot. You got to give it a try.
Yeah. I have, trained so many people, you kind of hit a key point. A lot of people, when they come on board at a company, a lot of them think they're just going to be closing. A lot of companies have SDRs, BDRs. And when you have
Yep.
those types of roles to help your closers, which are, I believe, usually, account managers and things like that are closing the deals from the
Mm-hmm.
BDRs and the SDRs,
Yep.
you know, with those roles in place, a company can, really focus on the closing with their salespeople. And, there's roles where a lot of times you're all of those things, and it may not be the right fit for that person. And I think just really finding where you fit. And, obviously people start in the SDR and BDR roles, and you kind of progress through to a, account manager. But, it's okay to, spend some time in those roles if it's not immediately clicking for you. And that's kind of
Mm-hmm.
where, you spend the time and find a mentor, and you find the top people that are, in the roles that you want, and you seek out that mentorship,
Absolutely.
and you start picking their brains, take them out to lunch, ask them what's working for them, ask how they started, pick their brain. And, that's where your
Yeah.
key breakthroughs kind of start, as, little seeds, and then you start turning them into your own personal growth and, your own pivotal moments.
Yeah. 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 Absolutely. And, like I said, I mean, the mentorship that I got from you, the mentorship that I got from, so many, of the other top
Yeah.
producers that were, you know, at that
Yeah.
company, I mean, monumentally changed me as a salesperson, because, like, there needs to be that culture of personal development. You need to be good and confident in asking questions, and not being afraid to, throw your weight around, and maybe you don't know something and asking for it,
Yeah.
because that's your growth. That's your growth as a salesperson. That's your growth as a professional, and you're growing and sharpening that
Yeah.
skill, to get out into the field and make something happen, which, we're not born learning, as much as many, salespeople that say that they're born salespeople. You may have a bend toward it, but if you want to be a sales professional, you have to do the self-education and the deep diving.
I feel like too, it's one of those things where, you have to put in the work and to see the results, but it's, a lot of people think it's going to be this overnight success. They're like, oh, I read this one book and it's changed my whole perspective on how to, and then they go to apply it, and then they fall down and they lose a sale, or, don't get the appointment. And, it's often where people have to realize it's a long-term game. It's not something that's just
Absolutely.
going to instantly click for you. And I think a lot of times people are looking for that quick fix, and you see it all the time in, the weight loss industry, especially. There's all kinds of personal help gurus out there. I like that industry, but it's oversaturated with people with the get rich quick and all that. And
Sure.
it's about showing up. It's about showing up every single day and doing the best you can. And so what if you make a mistake? So what if you don't close a deal? Learn from it, learn fast, and transition. So that's good.
You know, like sales it's an exponential game. It's the game of self-improvement. And every single one of those lessons, every single one of those books, it makes you more attuned to yourself, psychologically, but it also makes you attuned to every single person that you help and sell to. So, I mean, it can't be understated. Can't be understated.
I was going to ask, one of my big things is, you have sales people, right, that do sales, and they don't necessarily always define themselves as a professional. But then you have people that have been in the industry, you have people that have been doing this as a career, and succeeding at it. And I just was wondering your take on, like, was there a transitional moment for you where you realized you went from being a sales rep or a salesperson, right, to a sales professional, where you started owning everything and changing your identity into that sales professional?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's when you start to take, I think it's when you start to take the sales cycle serious. I think so many people, depending on your entry into sales, you can come into sales in a very, like, flippant manner. You can personality sell, unique advantage, like if you're, like give you like this example. If you're a car salesman and, you're the only car salesman in this car dealership that speaks Spanish, and everybody else doesn't speak Spanish, and your numbers are outrageous. Okay. That person can very well just be a salesperson, but not a sales professional because of their situation. So for a salesperson, your situation kind of defines if you're successful or not. A sales professional, your situation does not define if you're successful or not, because you understand every single part of the sales cycle, and you're working at it, every single part, the opening, the closing, the discovery process, what it is, how your prospects interact with the marketing materials. Like, what headspace are they in if they interacted with the marketing materials, from an inbound or an outbound? Like, that is what goes through the head of a salesperson. How do I manage my time? Like, who do I prioritize? Like, all of that is what a sales professional does. Salesperson doesn't do that.
Yeah, I can't remember the exact quote. I should have had it queued up and ready to go for the podcast, because I figured we'd kind of get on this topic. But there's a definition out there that I really love, and I'll have to share it. Maybe I'll put it, when I post this, we'll put it in the comments or something, or put it in the video description. But it
Yeah.
says basically, a sales professional doesn't mean that you're carrying a briefcase necessarily, or you're dressed up in a suit, and you're driving a BMW. That's not necessarily what it's how you carry yourself. It's the fact that you're always doing stuff to be productive. You're in that growth and development mindset. You're doing the right things necessary every single day, day in and day out, to do the best you can to succeed. And it's that ownership of what you're doing. And I think that a lot of times people get wrapped up in like, oh, I'm not a professional because, XYZ, I don't have this, I don't have that. I'm just I come in and sell stuff. Yeah, but I don't really identify as a salesperson because, salespeople are icky. Like it's a weird thing for identity in sales, because even the salespeople don't even want to identify as a salesperson. It's like, it's that weird thing. I think that's why kind of transitioning people's mindset of like, I'm a professional, and a professional means, a doctor is a professional, a lawyer is a professional. They're practicing those fields every single day, and they're learning, and they're continuing education, and they're just flourishing their skills every day. And I think that's what defines a professional versus someone who just comes in and does the job.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And funny enough that you bring that up, because so much of sales is wrapped up in identity. The most successful salespeople are the ones that take on the identity of a problem solver, and so that's why I, took my time out and, sat down and created, this guide for account executives to really understand. And it's like, what is the identity that you take on as a salesperson? What problems are you solving for your clients or your prospects or your customers? And how do you carry yourself? Like if you're a person that, is a commander, like you are the one leading the sale. If you're a commander, you lead
100%.
the sale. Like you know where the conversation's going. You know how to get them safely from point A to point B. But then you have people that are a pushover, and whatever the prospect says is right, or they take over the conversation.
Exactly.
And a pushover is not a sales professional. And so I broke down these 6 identities.
Hold on. Let's back up. Let's back up a second. Let's back up a second. So everybody, just so everybody knows that's watching and listening, what Zach is talking about is he actually published a sales guide. It's called The 6 Sales Heroes, a guide for account executives in healthcare sales. And basically, go ahead and explain now.
Yeah. So a big part of my hopes as a sales professional, the next 5-6 years that I see on the horizon as I look out on my career, is I want to be a person that develops other people. Sure. And so I've been able to take my sales experience from multiple different industries and kind of, boil it down to like what has made these top performers. Like, when I was killing it, in these different industries, like what was it that I was doing that made me a top performer? What was it that I, was able to pick out from those that were successful around me? And I boiled it down to these 6 identities that you take on as a sales professional, not just a sales.
Totally. So run me through some of the 6 here. So we have the first one, the unique.
Yes. Yeah. So the unique versus the commodity.
Uh-huh.
right? Um, so a top sales rep positions their services as indispensable over interchangeable. So what a salesperson needs to know your unique selling proposition, you
Totally.
know? And I mean, you may hear that term thrown around, but what are you selling that is different, that meets your client's needs different than the other guy down the street? You know, why should they go to you? And if you don't have an answer for that, uh, if you don't have an answer for that, either you need to understand your
Mhm.
product better, or you're selling a commodity. And if you're selling a commodity, it's going to be really hard for you to make exponential amounts, like real money that salespeople can make in solving real problems when you're selling something that everybody else is
Yeah.
selling. Like if everybody else is selling fidget spinners or selling
Yeah.
eggs,
Same product,
you know,
different
it's going to
person.
be you're not going to make a
Yeah.
fortune on
Yeah.
that, you know?
Exactly. So number two, the faithful.
Yes. So the faithful versus the
Mhm.
untrusted. Um, and so this is a big one in industries. You gotta follow
Yeah.
through, man. You gotta follow through. Nobody likes the sloppy sales guy who shows up late, who does not deliver when they say they're going to
Yeah.
deliver, who doesn't keep their prospect in the loop. Whatever is your responsibility after you
Yeah.
close the sale, and you get the payment, sale's not done. You have to deliver, you know? And there's just some sloppy salespeople out there that's not important to them, and your reputation is everything. So it's really important to be faithful to your product and your customers.
Number three, the ubiquitous.
The ubiquitous,
Yeah.
fancy
I was gonna
word,
say that's like an SAT
fancy
word.
word,
Yeah.
SAT word,
Yeah. Give
means
us a definition.
you are, yes, yeah, ubiquitous means you are seemingly everywhere all at once. Um, and this one I think is actually something that salespeople really do need to
Yeah.
tap into, that will honestly radically change how what your sales look like, especially with the dawn of
Mhm.
AI and um, multiple streams of media that are coming in. You got to be
Yeah.
everywhere. You know, there's 50,000 marketing messages that are streaming into everybody's heads at all the time. You have to be in their
Yeah.
email. You have to be on their
Yeah.
phone. You have to, be a person that follows up when you say you're going to follow
Yeah.
up, and then also follow up just to check in. Um, you have to be everywhere all at once, or else you will get drowned out. And I think some salespeople, they fear being annoying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah.
I feel like we
Um,
all feel like that
but
at one point or another, but
Mhm. Yeah, we all feel like that. But then really and truly, once you've seen the amount of people that you've helped, you look back at your
yeah.
career and the amount of people that you help. And this is something that you would say, you said through training all the time, and it sticks. It literally sticks in my brain all the time. Now, even to this day, is we cannot help them unless they
Yeah.
pay us. If we don't follow up with
Mhm.
them and we don't get the
Yeah.
close, we are not helping them.
You're basically just having
And
conversations on a phone call at that point, and nothing's getting done.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And nobody likes to waste anybody's time. So be
Yeah.
everywhere, close, help them,
So
you know?
number four might be my favorite because this is kind of where I fall in. The investigator. So Tell me a little bit
And
about that.
yeah, so the investigator, a top rep, knows that data is king and embraces an investigative
Yeah.
practice. Um, so you gotta
Yeah.
study, like you gotta know what's going on in your
Yeah.
market, what your competition is doing. You got to stay abreast on the industry
Mhm.
standards, because if you don't know, what's going on in your client's
Yeah.
world, what's going on in the
Yeah.
competition, you're going to be left
Yeah.
behind.
Yeah. I think too, there's a certain point where you almost, you can do too much investigating, and and it's that
Oh,
fine line,
yeah.
between, really figuring out where to stop the investigating, because you could go down a rabbit
Yeah.
hole and just really, unfortunately dig yourself so deep that now you're just in a mountain of data, and you've completely lost the personality side of your sales. Yeah.
hmm Yeah. Yeah. And I think that so a lot of analytical salespeople
Yeah.
fall into this, and that's the dangerous
Yeah.
camp, um, to where they learn too much, and then there's
Yep.
analysis
100%.
paralysis, or they're getting too bogged down in the
Yeah.
details. And there's there's the 80/20 rule, where 20% of what you do gives you 80% of the
Mhm.
results. Um, So you have to study, you have to be hungry, you have
Yeah.
to, get after that knowledge base. But there's a certain point where action has to take place. You have to take massive
Yeah.
action. Um, so you kind of just can't get caught down in the
Yeah.
weeds of things. So it's a fine line. But that's where, being in a community, having other people around you, you can see what the top performers are saying. Okay, this is enough information for everybody to make a decision, for me to know what's going on with you, for you to know what's going on with us, for us to go ahead and move forward. Any other problems that arise, we'll overcome those as they
Yeah.
pop up, because nothing's going to go.
100%. Yeah. I think it really just comes down to knowing your product, and knowing enough information about it to be able to deliver it competently. But also too, like you were saying, like you have to know the market, you have to know your competition, you have to know all of
Mm,
that stuff. And it can kind of get hairy pretty quickly if you're in the weeds, with too much information. Okay. So number 5,
100%.
the commander, leading with confidence. I like that one. I think I had to learn that, very early
Oh,
on, because I really struggled with the confidence for a while.
oh man, I'm curious, man. I mean, I feel like I've heard a little bit of this Ryan lore, but I feel like you should rehash it a little bit for
Well,
the
which part?
audience.
Which part?
I think it's just, so I'll read the title here, or the
Yeah,
the
go for it.
tagline: a top rep leads with confidence, and assertiveness while maintaining
Mhm.
respect. You define and redefine the relationship, you stand on the trust that
Mhm.
you've built, and you're cognizant of the state of the business relationship. And so, I'm curious, were you always the commander, or were you ever a pushover at one
Um,
point? Or, let's talk about it.
no, I don't feel like I was ever a pushover necessarily. I was like, to the investigator part, the overload of information made me
Mm,
so data driven, and just facts, 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 like benefits, products, services, benefits. I wasn't I wasn't having confidence because I wasn't closing. And I think that
mm,
the reason I wasn't closing is because I was so focused on the sale. And once I
yeah,
took that focus off the sale, and I learned from having literally one of our top reps at the time came up to me, and this is before I was training. This was back when I was a sales rep,
yeah.
and he basically just said, "Hey man, like why are you making this so hard for yourself?" And I
Mm,
honestly had no, I was perplexed. at the question. Honestly, I had no idea why he was, I was like, wow, I'd never been asked that before. And he's like, man, and honestly, I really thank him for doing it, because it really changed my perspective on how to sell. And he just had this certain confidence about himself that he was just so baffled by how I wasn't selling, because he made it so easy. And it is easy, but you just have to
Yeah.
do it the right way. And I think it was that moment that really changed my perspective. Obviously, I had to work on it. It wasn't like an overnight thing. But I just
Sure.
did little things to make it not so hard. And dude, I can't tell
Yeah.
you, I had sales books in front of me. I had quotes. I,
Yeah.
every sales guru you could imagine I had on my desk. And it was so overwhelming. And then you have, people trying to help you internally, and you have people trying to fix what you think is wrong. And then you're internalizing everything. And it's so overwhelming, and it kills the confidence. And not having that
Yeah.
confidence is basically the foundation of what sales is. You have to have the confidence, even if it's just made up facade confidence for a little while. But it has to be
Yeah.
there. And if it's not there, the whole rest of it's moot at that point.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's funny enough, I literally think back to, when I had just started with the company, and I would listen to, there was this one girl, she was an absolute killer. Her name was
Mm-hmm.
Mina. And I would just listen to her calls, and she just exuded
Yeah.
confidence. Never got into the
Yeah.
weeds. He kept it super simple, and just made it seem as if like, oh, why would you not do
100%.
this? Like, this is what this is
100%.
for. Like, this takes
Yeah.
care of
You got to
this.
make it not a big deal. If you don't make it a big deal, they're not going
Not
to
a
make
big
it a big
deal.
deal.
They're not going to
Yeah.
make it a big deal. And I just remember her doing that, and I remember
Yeah.
internalizing that, nagging that little sales nugget
Mm-hmm.
from her, and started to see my numbers just
Yeah.
go up, and asking for the money, asking for the close, and getting
Yeah.
in there, and just keep it pushing and keep it
Yeah.
simple.
All right. So coachable, number 6.
Yeah. The coachable versus the
It's
lone
actually a
wolf.
great one to end on.
And anybody who's, listening to this podcast at this point, probably is
Yeah.
coachable, because they obviously want to better themselves. But you got to be a lifelong
Yeah.
learner. You have to be a person that pursues feedback, not be afraid of
Yeah.
feedback. And you also have to be a person that can, collaborate with
Yeah.
success. Don't envy other people's
Yeah.
success. Try to
Yeah.
adopt it.
And
You
take the
know?
bad things too. One of the big
Oh
things
yeah.
that I learned is that, who I was sitting next to in my sales area, I was constantly picking things out of what I wanted to do. But I also started to realize
Yeah.
I was taking things away from people that I didn't want to do. And I think
Yeah.
it's that
Yeah.
aspect of just being able to pick and choose from what you see from other people. And it's almost like, monkey see, monkey do. You just start doing those things that are
Mhm.
working for them, and you see if they work for you. And some of them may not work for you, because everyone's
Yeah.
different.
Everybody's different. Yeah. Yeah. But I think, like if you're in an environment that fosters
Yeah.
coachability, so you ask for feedback, you get
Yeah.
feedback, and it's constructive, and everybody's growing, you'll always grow as a
Yeah.
salesperson in an
Yeah.
environment like.
Foster that type of environment, and you almost, it's just a natural occurrence that you foster, the growth and development of the people in that environment. It's just that always
Absolutely.
learning, always developing, and what can I do to be a little bit better each and every day? And it doesn't have to be a big thing. It could be a
No.
small thing, like taking a buddy to the driving range to get them out of their head.
Yeah, I appreciate it. My golf swing is slightly better now. So thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you, man.
That's awesome, man. Well, with everything we've talked about, obviously sales isn't just about the products and services that you're selling. It's understanding about the people and constantly improving yourself like we've been talking about. So, I'm going to ask you, what are some things that you do to continuously keep learning and growing as a sales professional? Obviously, writing this book is kind of a big step in that, but what else do you do?
So, just circle back. I'm a lifelong
Hmm.
learner, man. Like, I talk to my wife, she points it out to me all the time. She's like, man, you're constantly
Yeah,
consuming
yeah,
information,
for sure.
constantly all the time. And I literally have never stopped. I love learning about the psychology of people because sales is a
Yeah,
people business,
100%.
um, you're connecting with somebody on, people think that they make logical decisions. There's no science has proven no decisions are
Yeah,
logical. Even your Fortune 500 companies going through mergers and acquisitions, that those are emotional
yep,
decisions still,
100%.
Um, and so every sale is an emotional
Yeah,
decision. And so I'm always studying about people. I'm studying, communication
yeah,
patterns, negotiations, just culture.
yeah,
I've read tons of books on, um, I could literally give a salesperson probably 20, 30 books on just what it is to learn to connect
it's
with
awesome.
people. So I'll never stop there. And something that I'm doing now, which I'm really excited about, is taking all of my
Hmm.
learnings and condensing them down into something that is digestible for your average salesperson becoming a sales professional or wanting to be on that track. And then also cultivating my leadership muscle, trying to flex those and um, get under some
Yeah,
leaders that I look up to, that I see are absolutely doing it well and have cultivated great salespeople under them. And I'm privileged to be able to call you my friend and at one point my sales coach. And so I'm super
yep.
thankful,
Likewise, friend.
for that. Um, So, I mean, you've made such a big impact on me, on my life, on my career, and I want to be able to do the same and learn from other people that are just
Yeah,
like you.
that's awesome,
So,
man. That's it. That's called mentorship, man. And it's often in a free form, if you do it right through friendship and through networking and
yeah,
connection. And that's how people grow. That's how, you can watch all the podcasts in the world. You can read as many books as you want, but until you find people in the space that you want to be in, um, you're never
100%.
going to have, you're never going to have what it takes to get to that next level, unless it's just innate in you. You just figured it out and you read something and you apply it. But usually it takes that network of people, having people to fall back on. As a top producer, like what is I know we talked about a lot throughout this podcast, but what,
Yeah,
what is the number one thing that you would say to someone who's just starting out, or maybe they're trying to, maybe they're on the phones, they've been doing it a long time, or they're doing face to face and they're just struggling right now. Like, what one piece of advice would you give?
I would say um, be an empathetic listener.
Uh-huh.
Be an empathetic, be an empathetic listener. I would say that is the number one skill a salesperson will have, is to enter into somebody else's
Yeah.
life and hear the problems and the obstacles that they face and how it makes that
Yeah.
person feel.
That's strong.
If a person feels heard and
Hmm.
seen, um, they'll open up to you. Even if your pitch
Yeah.
sucks, you can barely
Yeah.
close. Um, but if you can empathize with that person and they
Yeah.
feel heard and understood by you, Like that's
I think that's a
absolute goal.
huge thing that you just said, because you're trying to make that connection through that listening, but it's almost like you in a sale, people do not want to become vulnerable. That's a big thing. Like being
Mm,
vulnerable in that moment. And I think with the the act of listening, like you almost give them, you take down that wall of I need to be like, I'm talking to a salesperson, I need to be on my guard. And you break down that wall and you almost force a sense of vulnerability that it's okay. You create that space in that moment of time for them to be vulnerable with you. And if you show
yeah,
that vulnerability first, that's kind of where the execution happens of a sale. Like you're not selling somebody, you're helping someone make that decision because it's a good decision that they need to make, right? So I think
yeah,
just that
yeah.
vulnerability, that was excellent. Great advice. So, finally, how do you balance in a sales world? Things are crazy. People sometimes probably working, 60, 80 hours a week in sales, sometimes
Yeah.
less, just depends. But what do you do to balance out your personal life with what you got going on, especially with writing a book and working your sales job? What do you have, to do with that balance?
Well, Um, yeah, I think it boils down to time management, and I'm actually, that's another topic of sales and personal
Uh-huh.
development that I've been digging down deep into recently. A lot of people are
Yeah.
busy, you know, like their calendars are busy, but that doesn't necessarily mean that you're
Yeah.
productive. Just because you're busy, does not mean that you're
Yeah.
productive.
I feel
Um,
I feel like you're
and
personally
I mean, it
attacking me
really,
right now.
uh, yeah, man. I just think that setting your
Yeah.
intentions in your day, like if you do not have a calendar, you do not have a schedule, like then your time is gonna run you. You're not gonna run
Yeah.
me. Um, so I'm a huge proponent on that, and I've had points in my life where literally I had no idea what I was doing, where I was doing it.
Yeah.
Didn't know where my lunch was coming from. Didn't do my laundry, like,
Yeah.
and some salespeople, a lot of salespeople are, you know, can sometimes be
I've
disorganized.
seen
And
I've seen their desks. I've
at
seen
one
their
point,
desks. Yeah.
yeah, you see, I'm sure. Yeah, so it gets pretty bad, but if you get organized and you get right and you set your intentions, like you can do
Yeah.
crazy things in a condensed amount of time and still have time for your
Yeah.
family, still have time for your friends. So yeah.
Man, well, I really appreciate you being on the show, Zach. I mean, this is the first podcast that I've ever hosted, and you've been amazing, absolutely phenomenal, and it's absolutely been a pleasure to have you. And where can people find you? Do you have any socials that you want to throw out there, or especially about your book, The Six Sales Heroes?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn. And so that is the
Okay.
primary place where I'm
Awesome.
engaging. If you are an account executive, if you are selling in, the healthcare space, if you are in business development, so this also goes for, SDRs,
Yeah.
BDRs, real acquisitions, real
Mhm.
estate investors, people that are on the investment side, that anybody that needs to create a long lasting relationship with their prospecting
Yeah.
clients, get over to this thing. Like read it, because it'll put you in the right mindset. It's something super digestible. You can read it, once a quarter.
That's awesome.
Takes 15 minutes to get through it. And
Now,
so,
is this
yeah,
something?
it'll be up on my
Okay,
LinkedIn
good. So
soon.
is this something you're posting for free, or is this something that there's going to be available for purchase?
It's going to be completely free. Yeah, just head to the LinkedIn. I'll have it linked up there, and it'll be free for download, and everybody can, get after it. And like I said, I really want to see people
Yeah.
grow. That's
Excellent,
exactly it.
man. Well, again, I appreciate you being on. If you've listened this far, I commend you and I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I hope you guys take a moment to subscribe because I'm hoping to have some more of these videos popping up with other sales professionals in other industries in future episodes. So if you guys want, I'm also on LinkedIn. Zach, is your LinkedIn profile Zachary Honore, or is it Zach Honore?
It is Zachary Honore.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
So you'll see it there. If you search either, I'm pretty sure
Okay,
I come up.
perfect.
There's not a lot of
Okay, cool.
me's
I
out
just wanted
there.
to make
So,
sure. Awesome. Well, you can find me at AfterSixSales on LinkedIn or Ryan Allen on LinkedIn. I also have a YouTube channel, AfterSixSales, and I do have a AfterSixSales.com. It's a blog website where I do a lot of articles, and there's a lot of sales information there for growing salespeople, as well as sales professionals that have been doing this a long time. Until the next time, I appreciate everybody, and we'll see you in the next one.